It's the Music is a Journey, Peter and Miko show. Hey. Okay, brushing the cat hair off my shirt. Hello viewers, this is Music is a Journey. I'm Peter. Miko has now left the room. Today, well, another thread video. My goodness, I was looking through my list of videos the other day, and most of my recent videos from the last 3 or 4 months are thread videos. How about that? I'm recording more videos per week now, 1 or 2, than I used to do in a month way back when. So today's thread comes from Simon at a channel, was at the Vinyl Dale, all right, at Vinyl Dale, but it is Return to Vinyl. That's right, a channel that was new to me. I have subbed, I watched the original video for this thread, and I watched one other one that he did that was interesting. And I've watched several of the other videos people have been doing. This is very interesting because at first, Simon very simply asked us to show 4 records from 4 of our favorite bands. In fact, I don't even remember why it had to be 4 albums from 4 of our favorite bands. But anyway, I think it's for 4x4, and I'm not really sure if Simon likes 4x4ing or maybe he just likes 4 and 4. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, I watched Doug at the Auditory Vinyl, and he put it in a little different way. He showed 4 albums by 4 bands, of which he has only 4 albums on vinyl. Then there was Steve at A is for Abyssinia, B is for Byzantine, and C is for Constantinople. He showed 4 albums by 4 bands that only ever released 4 albums. I thought that was a pretty good idea, and I started thinking of my own list. I was going to show these guys, and then I thought, but they have a 4th album that I don't have yet. How about this band? They just recently released a 4th album and I don't have it yet. So I gave up on that one. I also saw an interesting one today, Jack at the Vinyl Martini. Jack is known for having a luxurious head of hair, even though he's a little bit older than me. And he went with 4 artists who have very luxurious hair on all their album covers. That was an interesting take. Then there was Morten Astad. He did one where it was 4 bands that were artists that only ever released 4 albums. However, he told the story about what happened from around the 3rd to the 4th album. And in all cases, the bands were basically collapsing, disintegrating, falling apart. And the 4th album was like the last statement. And he said that none of these bands... it was possible that there could perhaps someday be a 5th album, but most likely not, especially in the case of one band where the lead vocalist passed away a couple of years ago. So I'm sure there were others. I think just about everybody I watched had some little twist to their video. So what I decided to do was to show 4 bands who did something different on their 4th album. They made a change to their sound, and maybe that was for the better or maybe not. And the original video asked us to show 4 albums from 4 of our favorite bands. So yeah, well, my favorite bands, I have talked about them a lot, but I decided, okay, all right, I'm gonna go with 4 albums by 4 of my favorite bands, with one extra little thing here. One of the bands is one that I don't listen to all that much, even though I have 13 of their albums, which is close to half of their discography. And so I thought, yeah, why not introduce them this time? So here we go. So, first up, if you know me, one of my favorite bands of all time is Sloan, originally from Halifax, Nova Scotia, been based out of Toronto now for a very long time. Their first 4 albums. First one, Smeared, from 1992 or early 93 anyway, on the David Geffen label. A underground Halifax scene mixed with shoegaze type album. Their second album, also originally on the David Geffen label, Twice Removed. They decided to go for more of a, Dinosaur Jr. Pavement type of sound, less emphasis on waves and waves of distortion, a little bit more cleaner sound. Very popular album in Canada. David Geffen Company did not support it because they wanted another Smeared. The band basically separated, temporarily taking a break, and decided to do one more album. This is more of a 60s inspired album. The drumming is exactly more of a 60s style recording sound, and the producer said, I want to change the sound of the drums. And the band said, we don't want to. So the producer said, fine, just make sure I don't get credited for the drum sound. So anyway, this is more of still an underground-ish indie type rock band, but with some strong influences from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and there's some trumpet on here too, so you might say a bit of Chicago. And then we get to the fourth album. This is from 1998. This is Navy Blues. After the success of the third album, which is called One Chord to Another, by the way, the band decided they're going to continue. And then the next album they did, holy smokes, this was a classic rock album. Classic rock revisited in 1998. We've got songs on here that sound like AC/DC, that sound like the Beatles. I remember one reviewer saying a song sounds like Foghat. Another song with brass in it sounds like Chicago. Just so much of what you would get from, say, like 1969 through to the early 70s, just a lot of good old mid-70s even classic rock sound. And there are actually two bonus tracks on here. One of them exactly sounds like a mid-60s almost Who type track, where you've got drumming in one channel and another drumming in another channel and vocals in one channel and guitars in another channel. So yeah, very interesting. This one here, there's a song on here called Money City Maniacs. People in Canada, we've heard this song just way too many times. But if you have never heard it, it's worth listening to. A really good kick-ass song. And also She Says What She Means. Great track, videos for those. So that is Sloan, their fourth album, Navy Blues, going from this underground shoegazy type thing into this pavement type thing, into a 60s type thing, into a very solid rockin' classic 70s rock type album. I'm showing you the back side, I'm showing you the front side. I don't know, I'm showing you both sides. There we go. So, by the way, one of the band members, he's pictured over here. This is Jay Ferguson. He also has a vinyl channel. He has been collecting albums since he was quite young. There is his vinyl channel, by the way, is Records with Jay. I will put a link in the description. There's a story of him being in a record store when he was 12 years old, and the teenage kid who was working there part-time got in a quarrel with the manager and walked out of the store saying, I quit. And the manager just looked at Jay and said, hey kid, you want a job? And so Jay got a part-time job at the age of 12 working in a record store. There was a Sunday morning TV program for young kids. I mean, you know, like late 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, that kind of thing. It was called Switchback, and there was an interview with him, 12-year-old kid working at a record store, and he actually shared that interview on his Instagram page a couple of years back. So anyway, Records with Jay, he has not put out any new videos for the last 3 months because Sloan is very busy gearing up for the release of their 14th studio album called Based on the Bestseller. They've got a couple of singles released. There's an amusing video for one of them. I will put a link to that as well in the description. So check the description to find Records with Jay, as well as one of the videos for Sloan's latest album. That is Sloan. I promise I will not talk as long about other bands as I did with them. Next up, the Tea Party from Windsor, Ontario. Now, where are they? They're in Toronto. They're in Windsor? Somebody's in Windsor. Somebody's in Toronto. Somebody's in Perth, Australia, I think. Anyway, they originally released their very first album, 500 copies only, back around 1991. This is a band that has been listening to Led Zeppelin's Presence and Physical Graffiti an awful lot. But it is an interesting album. It was reissued on CD just a few years back with the original mix and a remix or remaster, whatever. So I was very glad to get a hold of that. They followed that up, moving to a major label. I don't remember what the major label was. EMI? Could be. Can't see. Need glasses. This is Splendor Solace, and this features a song called The River. Now here the band still have some of the songs from the other album on here redone. There are some acoustic instrumentals, but there's also this blend of heavy rock, blues, and folk, and Eastern sounding styles, especially in The River. You can hear that Middle Eastern style coming into the music. Very interesting album. Their third album, Edges of Twilight, second major label album. This is where they got like a $30,000 advance, and they spent it all on buying exotic Eastern instruments, Eastern and Middle Eastern and African instruments. So this has a lot of different interesting instruments on here, as well as their hard rock, heavy rock, folk and bluesy type thing. So this is one of their best known albums. The songs Fire in the Head, The Bazaar, not the Bazaar, The Bazaar, and especially Sister Awake are songs to check out from that one. So we're talking about a band that's playing heavy rock, blues rock, folk rock with more and more of an Eastern influence coming in. And then Jeff Martin, the singer, songwriter, guitarist for the band, was going through a divorce. He moved to Montreal. He lived in a flat by himself, was feeling really down and angry about things. And somebody said, hey, you should listen to this album, The Downward Spiral by Nine Inch Nails. And he thought, wow, that is some really cool stuff. We're going to do something like that on the next Tea Party album. And so they did. This is Transmission, and this is the first Tea Party I ever heard. This is industrial, heavy industrial. It's a lot more on the heavy side, not so much acoustic, just some bits of acoustic of those exotic instruments, but plus also keyboardy, distorted guitars type things, also in an Eastern style. Some of the tracks are a bit slower and more atmospheric and spaced out. Some have some pretty melodies in them, but it is overall a pretty dark album and pretty heavy in places. I really like it. And who was it now? I don't remember if it was Stuart Chatwood, who plays bass and other instruments, or Jeff Burrows, who does drums and percussion. One of the two of them painted the album cover as well. So that is Transmission from the Tea Party, going from a hard rock, heavy rock, classic rock, folk rock, blues rock band with Eastern instrumentation into an industrial, dark industrial type band. Next up, Miss Lee Aaron. Here is her debut album as it was reissued on the Attic label under the name Lee Aaron. Here is the original release, The Lee Aaron Project, with the original album cover. Young 19, 20-year-old Lee Aaron on the back there. This is a pretty good early 80s hard rock, heavy rock, kind of metal type album, especially the song Night Riders on here. That's a pretty heavy one. A lot of different people involved in writing on here. We had some people from Santer's writing. We had someone from Moxie was on there. We had Frank Soda writing a song. We also see the band Rabbit is listed around here somewhere. So various Canadian artists who all were connected to Lee Aaron's manager at the time, and they all contributed to help writing this album. But Lee wanted to write her own material. So Rabbit guitarist John Albani joined with her. The next album they did was Metal Queen. You can probably see it up there. Here is the CD. And the song Metal Queen is, of course, basically an anthem, an 80s metal anthem, especially one for Lee Aaron, one of the songs she is best known for. And she went on to do a third album called Call of the Wild. Again, this is mostly her and John Albani writing the songs and music together, although there was a cover song on here. Interestingly, there is a song on this album, Beat 'Em Up, which was also done by Blue Oyster Cult on their Club Ninja album. And neither artist covered the other. The song was actually written by somebody else whose name I have now forgotten, but if you want, you can look him up. Anyway, he wrote also some songs for Judas Priest and others. So anyway, yeah, so again, another hard rock kind of 80s heavy metal type albums. We've got 3 strong hard rock and heavy albums, but the label, the Attic label, was saying we really want to get Lee Aaron broken into the American market. Now, these 2 albums here were doing quite well in Europe, and not so bad in Canada either. However, Attic Records really wanted to get her into the American market. So, brought in outside writers. One of them was Joe Lynn Turner, in fact, and they wrote a very pop rock, but pop rock album, which they called Lee Aaron, suspiciously the same title as the reissue of the debut album. Go figure. And this actually became a very big selling album for her. She got in the charts. It sold very well in Europe. And it started to get some attention in the United States. So yeah, turn it into more of a pop type thing. This is our pop rock diva here. Come on, America, buy into it. And some record labels in the US were showing interest. However, Attic Records had the very clever idea to say, if you want Lee Aaron, you got to take our entire roster. They didn't want the entire roster. They wanted Lee Aaron. So no deal. And you know who else was on the Attic Records roster? Anvil. Yeah, that's right, Anvil. And you watch the Anvil documentary and you'll see, after Anvil's first 3 albums, there was a 4-year release gap. Because exactly, Attic Records was kind of dicking around trying to get them, you know, the roster sold to an American label. And it took 4 years for Anvil to get a new album out. And by that time, yeah, Anvil missed out. So, I mean, I could have included Anvil on here too. But their 4th album was pretty much the same as the first 3. So here, hard rock, heavy metal, whatever, early 80s heavy metal princess turned into a pop rock princess here. What did Lee Aaron think about it? She did not like having so many outside writers involved. She wanted to be in charge of writing her songs together with guitarist John Albani. And so she said, after the failure to get her signed in the United States, look, Attic, you tried your game, it didn't work. Now I'm going to play it my way. And she and John went off and wrote, I think, all or nearly all of the songs for the 5th album, Body Rock, which then became her biggest selling album ever. Anyway, that's her 4th album, the pop rock album. And actually, there's very little about that album I really like. It just sounds way too 1987, 80s. Like, whoa. All right, one more band to go. And this is the band, I think I have maybe mentioned them twice in the entire, like, over 7 years of Music is a Journey. But as I said, I have 13 of their albums. This is, yeah, another Canadian band, right? Canadian content here. I'm not sorry about it, eh? This is Saga. Here is their debut album from, is it 1978, isn't it? Right. And already starting out as a band, showing some progressive elements, some hard rock elements, and some pop elements, but serious type pop. I mean, we're talking songs that have prog leanings in the lyrics and the style, and, you know, complex music put in between the more catchy verses and choruses. So they get rid of one keyboard player, get a new keyboard player for the 2nd album, Images at Twilight. And then there's, you know, problems with that keyboard player. He's not happy with the way he's treated. Michael Seidler says he's a whiner. Michael Seidler, the vocalist, and the guy leaves the band, and they get a 3rd keyboard player, and then finally they settle on their classic lineup. This is Silent Night, their 3rd album. And one of the interesting things on these first few albums was they had written a series of 8 songs that were all parts of a story, and then on each album they put different ones. So like on the first one, I don't remember which ones are part of the story, we've got Chapter 4 and Chapter 6 on the first album. We've got Chapter 3 and Chapter 1 on the 2nd album. We've got Chapter 2 and Chapter 7 on the 3rd album. And what do they do for the 4th album? Their producer, Paul Gross, you're out of the picture, buddy. And they go off and get a new producer. Who did they get as their producer now? Can I even see that? They get Rupert Hine. So the band gets Rupert Hine in, and they come up with an album that just sounds a little bit that much more polished. Not like there was anything wrong with the first 3, but one of the things Rupert Hine told Michael Seidler right away is, stop the opera style singing. And their 4th album, Worlds Apart, this is their best-selling album. You look that up. The best-selling Saga album is their 4th one, Worlds Apart. What was on here? On the Loose, Wind Him Up were 2 of the big songs on here. Some other great tracks are Amnesia, The Interview, which is an instrumental. And then we've got No Regrets, Chapter 5, and No Stranger, Chapter 8, wrapping up the 8-piece puzzle of that, 8-part story. Okay, so what did Saga do? Well, pretty much it's the same band, but they got rid of their producer from the first 3 and got in Rupert Hine for their 4th album and made it their best-selling album. So there you go. That's it. 4 bands with 4 albums, where the 4th album they did something different, and in one way or another, all of these bands reached greater success with those, whether that was for the better or for not, who knows. But anyway, thank you for watching. That's it. I'll be back with another video some other time. All right, everyone, take care. Yeah, thank you. See ya.